Delighted to be joined by Mo Stewart from the Anfield Wrap. Mo, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So we've got a big game coming up on Thursday. We'll come to that shortly. I want to start with Liverpool overall. 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League with a game in hand. How are the nerves? How are you feeling as we go sort of into the home straight? On the bend, not quite on the home straight, but on the bend.
Nerves are a funny thing, really, because as Liverpool fans, we've been here a few times before and had the rug pulled out from underneath us. But I always try to concentrate on what I'm seeing on the pitch rather than the permutations and whatever. And I'm looking at a team that looks like they believe that they can do what needs to be done to win this league. And that is where my confidence comes from. Like, I don't try to get too caught up in watching other teams and checking the league table every 5 seconds. That will come in March and April. But in February, I'm just happy that we're playing football really, really well.
Do you feel the pressure? You don't need my sympathy. When I watched Liverpool win the title in COVID, I was like, a first Premier League title, and there was no one there to enjoy it. Is there a little bit of added pressure and almost feel like we've got to do this now because of how it happened last time?
I mean, first of all, I would say that we did enjoy it. Like, we weren't around to join in with everyone else, but we all individually had a very good time. But you're right, it did feel a little bit different. We didn't get the parade, and I don't know if you've seen from previous times when Liverpool won big trophies, but the parade is almost the best part of it. Like that coming together of everybody to share in this fantastic thing we've done. So the idea of having something like that this time does actually add to the spice, add to the anticipation. But whether it adds to the pressure, I'm not 100% sure. There's not that many people who are there. I think there's only 5 or 6 of the squad who were there back at that point. So for a lot of them, this is a new chance, a new opportunity to go out there and it's part of their name in the history of this club.
Mo, talk to us about the significance of the game on Thursday, because as a Liverpool fan, you might be looking at your season and saying this is the least important trophy that you're in for. At the same time, you know, it is great to get to a final and get that first trophy done for Arne Slot, who's done a fantastic job. So where are you positioning this particular game in the context of your season?
There is a lot of debate amongst the Liverpool fan base over exactly that, particularly in the context of the feeling that maybe going for everything cost us a little bit last season. But for me personally, it's not the least important trophy. It's the first trophy. After all of the talk we've had this season of how great Liverpool have been, you want to have something tangible to attach to that. So the very first opportunity that we can get to put some silverware on the sideboard, we want to take it. And I think you've seen in previous seasons the amount of times the team who's won the League Cup and then gone on to win the league in the same season. It really can have a positive effect on you going down the stretch.
So what you're saying is if Spurs win and get to the final, we're still in with a chance of the league.
I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it.
I was only parroting what you said, but no, you're right. You're 100% right.
I mean, and mathematically, I do believe it's still possible for Spurs to win the league, but I tell you what, it would take the most ridiculous run of results to happen.
Of course.
Almost to the point where I'd actually quite like to see it happen just for the sheer unbelievableness of it.
Yeah.
In which case, though, I get what you're saying about the Carabao. So I know we haven't really got you on to talk about this, but then where does it leave you going into the weekend? So is it sort of we'll go for the Carabao and then maybe play a weaker team at the weekend? Because realistically, you can't challenge for 4. You can challenge for 4 trophies, but you're not going to win 4 trophies. So for any one of them to knacker one of the other ones, that's not going to do anyone any favours either.
Well, I mean, yes and no. Technically, no one has ever won 4 trophies, so I can still always say you can't do it. But Liverpool did come very close 2 seasons ago. They were within 2 games of doing it. And you look at the squad, obviously we lost Trent at the weekend, but as it stands, he is the only injured player we have. Well, I mean, I'm sure we're going to come on to speak about injuries in a minute, but
no, we're not.
That depth of squad is going to be the real key to doing it. And when you've got 25, 26, 27 good players and only 20 you can get into a squad, you need these extra games to keep these guys ticking over, to keep them involved, to keep them interested, in case, in the worst case scenario, you do get an injury to a decent player, and then you've got to bring them in. So I think it can work for and against you. And then obviously the fact the weekend is against Plymouth, the expectation is that there will be more of the younger players who we saw against PSV coming into the team. And so far, I think Arne Slot's done a really good job of being able to manage that balance between giving rest and keeping guys in rhythm.
One player who never really seems to get a rest is Mo Salah, and I do have to bring this up. Obviously, we had one of our own, our best player we've ever seen, Harry Kane, leave in the summer to go on and win trophies. That's not something that Salah needs to do. He's got a lot in his trophy cabinet. How do you see that going? He seems to still be deflecting on the contract negotiations. Do you think he will sign, and do you see a life beyond Salah?
Well, first of all, I don't really want to see a life beyond Salah because he's still doing the business week in, week out. So we can deal with that in the hopefully in the distant future. But the way the contract negotiations are going, it's difficult because I think these things are more complicated than the emotional fan reaction would suggest. Because we look at this time last season, he wasn't at his best. He'd just gone back from AFCON. He had a bit of an injury. And then for the end of the season, it wasn't at his best. So the owners and the sporting director basically got a vision of what it could look like if it goes wrong. So you can understand why, from their perspective, they're not going to be we'll just give you whatever you want, 4 years, all of the money in the world. But then the flip side is, you see how he's producing. You see that he's possibly having his greatest season ever as a Liverpool player. You see the way he looks after himself in general. You see the way that he's such a motivating tool, not only for himself, but for all of his teammates. And you just think we've really, really got to make sure that we get to watch this guy for a couple more years at the very least. I think that the fire that he's got underneath him right now to prove that he can still be the great. I don't think that goes away if he signs a big contract. I think that if he signs a big contract, he'll say, okay, now I'm going to prove exactly why you were right, rather than prove why you might have been wrong.
And looking ahead to Thursday, now obviously we're 1-0 up at half time. How do you see the game going? But I also understand there's a Tottenham connection in your family. How's that going to go down?
Well, put it this way. I had to turn my phone off after the first leg because my dad is a Spurs fan and my stepmom is a Spurs fan. And well, my dad's actually not the problem. It's my stepmom. She's the one who likes it because she doesn't get to do it very often, bless her. But it has always been one of those things within our family where it's a bit of a battle internally. But I think, as you guys probably know, Liverpool Spurs games have always had a little bit of the bizarre about them as well. So it's never really been as simple as the team in the best form comes in and wins the game. So I think that Liverpool should be able to do enough to overturn it. But one thing I would say, I'd quite like us to get another clean sheet. We've only had one clean sheet in our last 6 at home, and that was against Accrington Stanley.
Right.
So, I mean, from that, Spurs will probably go into it thinking, if we score the first goal, suddenly they've got a massive mountain to climb. What I would say, though, is Anfield has helped Liverpool climb many mountains in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was another one of those occasions.
But just to dampen your hopes, I've got some bad news. The last time that I personally was at Anfield for a knockout game was 1995. I don't know if you have memories of that one. And I'm going again on Thursday. So I'm going again on Thursday. So it looks like you're out.
Well, what I would say as well, though, in flip side to that, the last 2 times I've watched Spurs on Merseyside, you were 3-0 down against Everton 2 weeks ago, and you were 4-0 down against Liverpool in May. Both times you did make a late comeback, but both times it was ultimately not enough. No. So, swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, more recent history. You're probably on your side.
So go on, let's have a prediction for Thursday night.
I predict 3-1 to Liverpool. I don't think Spurs will score the first goal, but I think they will score. And we'll have to score 3, and we'll score 3. And then we'll beat Arsenal in the final, so you guys will be happy.
You think Arsenal are going to the final ahead of Newcastle?
I do. I think that will be another game. That's going to be where the surprise comes, because Newcastle have lost their last 2 at home.
Yeah.
Arsenal are now feeling very good about themselves after what happened yesterday. So I think that they will be able to ride that momentum, but ultimately still leave themselves unsuccessful, and unfulfilled.
I'll take
I
that.
love it when we get guests on from other clubs lower down the league and they sort of say, yeah, I think you'll come, you Tottenham, and you'll lose 2-3-1, and we go, come on. When a Liverpool fan goes on, we go, yeah.
That's probably.
What are you going to say?
Mo, thank you so much for joining us. As I say to all my guests, good luck for the game. I don't really mean it, and I hope your dad and your stepmom are smiling. But obviously, after that, I hope you win absolutely everything. But we'll take
the
Thursday.
same. I think that there's no luck to be had for this game, but just for my own sanity, and so that when I go home, I'm not facing scowls. I do hope Spurs do well. I hope that they stick with Ange, because I really like watching you when it goes well. And I think that a Spurs football team needs to have belief that they can go out there and do great things. And I've seen Spurs not have that belief in the past under different regimes. And I like where you are now. So stick with him and you'll go all right.
It's a hot topic. Appreciate that, Mo. And thank you so much for joining us, and hope we speak to you soon.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys. See you again.
Cheers.
Great stuff.